Update. My 18 female best friend 18 female keeps making advances on my boyfriend 21 male, and I don't know what to do. Original post. 6 months ago, I met my now boyfriend and we hit it off right away. He's really amazing. Sweet. My family really likes him, and he cares about me a lot. We've had a very healthy and stable relationship so far, and we tell each other everything. He's like a best friend to me. I also have this best friend that I've known for a long time, since we were around 10 years old to be specific. The two of us always have a lot of fun together, and I really care about her. The thing about her is that she has a tendency to seek attention, especially from guys, and especially from the guys that I like. It's always been this way for as long as I've known her. The night I met my boyfriend, I was out with her and my boyfriend was also out with his friend. Upon meeting, she tried to hit on him, but he made it perfectly clear that he wasn't interested in her, and then proceeded to ask for my number in front of her and his friend. She also got his number though, because she asked him for it and he didn't want to be rude. However, once my friend and I got home, she told me that I should take whatever he says to me with a grain of salt, because she was convinced that he was just using me to make her jealous, and that he was playing hard to get. This made me a little insecure and made me doubt whether he really liked me or not. Later though, he started texting me and that's when we hit it off. We started talking every day and have continued doing so ever since that I told her about it. She still went ahead and decided to text him in front of me and ask him to hang out, still telling me how he was playing hard to get and was trying to make her jealous by texting me. He knew that she and I were together, so he didn't respond to her message at all but instead texted me and asked me out to dinner. A few days later, after he started texting me and after he asked me out, I found out that my BFF had been telling other people that she hooked up with him. I forgot to mention that my boyfriend is considered to be very handsome. It is also very successful for his age, so she was essentially bragging to people about something that never even happened. I let her get away with it just because I'm so used to her doing this type of stuff to me. He starts taking me out on dates as frequently as his schedule lets him. On our first date actually, my friend starts calling me obsessively, 18 times, and is rushing me to get back home because all of a sudden she wants to hang out with me. She proceeds to tell me I'm the worst friend ever, because I won't just drop everything to come hang out with her and that I won't interrupt my date with this guy. Not only does she call me, she texts my date, since she still has his number, and asks him when we're done and stuff like that, essentially rushing us to end our date early. After the date is done, she calls me again and tells me that since I ruined her entire night, the least my boyfriend, just my date at a time, and I could do was pick her up. She was apparently not at home but at the mall, which I had no idea about. I start to feel really bad, so I have to ask the guy to pick her up from the mall and then drive us home together. I never agreed to any of this, and she could have easily taken the bus since it wasn't that late. This became a habit of hers. She started interrupting our dates essentially every time we went out together by calling and texting me all the time. At once, she even started crying because she's not used to my attention being on someone else. Flash forward 6 months to right now. I've had several talks with her about this, and while it's not as extreme as in the beginning, it still happens sometimes. Now, this friend has a boyfriend of her own, but she still keeps making several comments about my boyfriend, like how hot she thinks he is and stuff like that. She sexualizes him frequently, and even admitted to wishing she could watch us doing it since she wants to see what it's like in bed. Today I found out that she has been using my boyfriend to make her boyfriend jealous. She told her boyfriend about the time she and I met my boyfriend and his friend for the first time. However, she twisted the story to make it seem like my boyfriend was into her, and she even failed to mention that I was even there at all. Now her boyfriend is really jealous because he thinks there's some random hot guy obsessed with my friend, even though they've never talked in person after the time she essentially forced him to give her a ride. Now I really don't know what to do and I need some advice. How do I deal with her? Now for the top advice before reading the update. This is your best friend? Who need enemies with friends like these? Right? If this is the best friend, then I would hate to see what the less than best friends are like. Her bar for a best friend is so low that it's in the deepest pit of hell, and her best friend still brings a shovel. Just because someone has been in your life a long time doesn't mean that they deserve to stay in your life. Your friend lies, is envious of you and your boyfriend's relationship, and has repeatedly attempted to sabotage your relationship. Explain to me how she in any way a good friend? You don't have to hate her, you can just accept that she no longer has a place in your life. This is the tough part of heading towards your 20s. You start to outgrow people. That's so true. I've had a friend that I realized after a while was toxic, and I've cut her out after about a year, and I'm so happy to waste a few more years around her. Start turning your phone off on dates, or at least tell her that you're turning your phone off on dates. And then don't check your phone. It will be hard because she will escalate. Don't reply. Givers must set limits because takers never do. That's what I've been doing. I turn off my phone and won't reply to anyone until after the date is done. It's still annoying to see that she's called or texted during it though. And now for the update. Hey, sorry for taking so long to update. I took you guys' advice, and the day after I read most of the replies, I texted her and told her that I was no longer comfortable being her friend, and that I wanted to take some distance from her. She called me crying and seemed really upset about it, but I told her that the way she behaved was really inappropriate, and that I don't have a place for people like that in my life. After some back and forth, she apologized that she came across that way, and that she totally understood if I wanted to take a step back. I thought everything was fine, and I actually didn't even feel the need to make an update, until I found out about this. Apparently my friend had showed up at my boyfriend's doorstep. I had stupidly told her where he lived a few times beforehand because I didn't really think too much of it. And she was crying to him and saying that I was really rude and mean to her, and that I was breaking off our friendship for no reason. Basically just spouting a bunch of nonsense. My boyfriend didn't let her in or anything, but instead told her that this behavior was really inappropriate, but he did offer to walk her up to her bus stop. She said something along the lines of how nice of a guy he is, and saying stuff like how he's so nice and kind to still want to be with me after what I did. My boyfriend asked her about what she meant, but she didn't elaborate. Knowing her, she was definitely making up some stupid lie on the spot. My boyfriend told her that she needed to leave immediately, and after a while she did. As soon as she left, he called me and told me everything. I blocked her and everything and haven't talked to her since, and so has my boyfriend. Not that exciting, and this behavior might sound really unhinged to some of you, but it's pretty normal to me. She's always acted this way, and I feel kind of stupid for putting up with it for this long. I have no plans on talking to her ever again though. Thanks for helping me see that she's crazy. Lol. I would tell any mutual friends about what happened too, just in case she tries to turn people against you. Yeah, good idea. I'll have to get onto that. Make sure to make it clear you do not want them mentioning anything about you or your boyfriend to her. Read your first post. Her behavior is unhinged and doesn't respect boundaries. Clearly you can't trust her. I'm glad you're no longer entertaining this behavior. I relate to this. Thank you for sharing the update. I had an ex-friend like that. While I was her friend, I wasn't dating. As soon as I started to date, she was interested in every guy I was with. Mind you, we weren't teens. We were adults. It seemed odd to have this type of behavior/competition at this age. Every guy I was with should also secretly text them and ask to go to the movies or dinner, without me. The guys would tell me about it, always told me they weren't interested in her and I trusted that, so I wasn't fazed. The guy I was spending the most time with, she got him drunk and went down on him, and called me about it right after while he was asleep. It felt like she was making an attempt to claim her territory. I asked if she drank anything and she said no. Needless to say, I continued to pursue this guy, and I felt bad for what he went through because of my friend. I started to distance myself from her. As the guy and I continued to grow together, I finally asked him about that night, and at first he pretended not to remember. He really felt awful, and I told him I was still interested and it was okay. We decided to pursue a relationship after that, and the ex-friend caught wind. Now, I never had the guts to directly cut off my friend like you did with yours. I almost wish I did though. My ex-friend ended up texting me, my guy, and I were friends asking everyone if we were sleeping together, and that because she had already been intimate with him, even though it wasn't consensual, that she felt as if I was in the wrong for potentially sleeping with him. No one fessed up anything, and she ended up coming to my place, unlocked the house, and dropping my stuff off without me knowing. The guy and I are now going on 4 years strong. It sounds like you have a really solid guy in your hands, and he has enough respect for you, which is amazing. Now for the last story. How concerned should I be about my husband and his increasingly close relationship with his old friend/new neighbor? Hello, I'm 34 years old. My husband is 32. I'm posting on here because he has a tendency of taking things pretty personally. So I'm just making sure I'm not making a big deal out of something I shouldn't before I bring it up to him. We have been married for 10 years. We have 2 children together. Our relationship has its ups and downs like all marriages, but all in all, we're both very happy and have a healthy relationship. We live in a neighborhood. A few months ago, an old childhood friend of his, Jane, who is 31, bought the house directly across from the neighbor on our left side. He said that they were very close middle school age, but lost contact in high school. I've spoken to her a few times and invited her over for dinner. She's very nice, but has always turned down my invitation and said she wouldn't want to be a bother. I understand if people are wary going into other people's houses. Being in close proximity while eating, etc. is something that a lot of people are rightfully still cautious of. Or I figured she could just be introverted, awkward, etc. So I never took her turning down the invitations personally or anything. I'm a teacher, and I teach in person. My husband works from home about 75% of the time, just going to his office when he needs to go to meetings or presentations. Our boys are both school-aged, so they're gone during the day. I didn't realize that my husband and his old friend were reconnecting during the day. Not that it's something I would have cared about, but I think that the fact that I didn't know about it makes it suspect for me, if that makes sense. I found out they were texting. He wasn't exactly trying to hide it. He wasn't being secretive about his phone or anything. And when she texted, her name popped up. I just didn't realize they were close enough to text or when they exchanged phone numbers. I asked him, but he was like, "Oh yeah, sometimes we talk when I'm doing yard work and she goes on her morning jogs." He said it totally casually, like he wasn't worried I had caught him doing something he shouldn't have been. Last night he actually surprised me and said Jane is going to come over for dinner. I'll treat us all to takeout. I was like, "Oh great, why don't you text her and see what she'd like?" And he said, "I already know her favorite. It's XYZ. I was like, "How do you know her favorite meal from there?" And he answered he must have remembered from when they were kids. Over a decade and a half ago. But okay. Then she came over. It was fine. We were all having a good time. She wanted to print something out from her phone. But to do that, she'd need to use a password to get onto our Wi-Fi, and then another one to print. So I was like, "Oh, I have the passwords written down. I'll go get them." But she said no, she was okay and just printed, which means she already had a password saved in her phone, which means she had already been over our house, which my husband had never told me about. But I also feel like I'm crazy. Is this worth confronting him over? I don't want to start a fight over my own paranoia. Editing to add, I did ask him about the password thing. I was like, I wonder how Jane was able to print without passwords. Unless she's been over here before, that wouldn't be possible. It is said sometimes the Wi-Fi messes up and won't ask for a password. It's a security issue. And I don't know enough about technology to disprove that. And it knows it. But it still seems like a flimsy excuse to me, and it's never happened before. We have a Ring doorbell. I don't have the app/login info on my phone, my husband does. Now for the advice. I wasn't at all concerned about your husband until his line about the Wi-Fi. That's a lie. Same here. Everything up to that point could be believed. Yep, 2 devices having miraculous failures that allow access but don't authenticate? Unbelievably improbable. Husband just cast a shadow over everything by lying about it. Which begs the question, just how much time has Jane spent in the house? Obviously quite a bit if she has access to the Wi-Fi and printer. I worry about how gullible Opie's husband thinks Opie is too. To tell her such a blatant lie that even someone with no tech knowledge can see through it as BS. It's also shady as heck to claim he remembers her favorite food from middle school. There's precious little I ate in middle school that I still like today. It is being so sure about it would suggest far more recent information. From a basic IT standpoint, it seems fishy to me. The Wi-Fi wouldn't mess up with a security issue without affecting the rest of the devices on the network, including the printer. You could try to enter your router settings at home, which can show you the IP, MAC address, and sometimes names of the devices on your network. Depending on your router model, you might also have a log of when a device was connected. Then you can cross-reference the addresses and see if her device connected to your network in prior instances. If you'd like some guidance to access the router, feel free to ask me any questions. Otherwise, you can also get instructions from your internet service provider. It's not you being paranoid. You have the truth. She had been over already. He's been texting her. Facts are there. The issue is I wouldn't have had an issue with this if he had been open about it. But with him being secretive, or at least not totally open, it makes it seem much more suspect. Oh, honey, Darling, it doesn't make it seem more suspect. It isn't suspect. It is a full-on red alert. I'm a tech, and your husband is lying to you and believing he can get away with it because he thinks you are stupid and that he can get away with this. You know for a fact that she can't print without that Wi-Fi password. Wi-Fis don't glitch and randomly let people in without a password. That isn't a thing. Your husband is deliberately misleading you and trying to make you second-guess yourself, aka gaslighting. Even your comment of your husband taking things pretty personally is such a huge red flag you can't even. In a healthy relationship, you don't need to post on here to reassure yourself that you are okay for feeling uncomfortable before you broach a subject with your significant other because you are afraid of upsetting them. My goodness, woman, have faith in yourself. Your husband is very, very, very likely cheating on you. However, don't confront him without proof. He will only gaslight you more, and you're on the risk of allowing it because you want it to be true. It is much easier to be a silly little woman who gets upset about things that aren't true than it is to have your husband treating you like an idiot and hooking up with someone else behind your back. Get proof. If and when you get proof, go talk to a lawyer, not your husband. Because if he is cheating on you, then he isn't your husband anymore. He is just community prick.